Hello, my name is Rob Myers. I'm a solution architect here at Data.World, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about tactical approaches to data literacy. So I've been with Data.World for just about a year now, and I want to share with you that this is one of the most exciting places for where we're taking some technical approaches to creating a method that business users and data engineers and data scientists can really enable the organization to use data in a proficient manner. And to do that, we really want to create stepping blocks to creating data literacy. So that's the approach I want to talk to you about today. I want to really talk about some really tactical approaches for getting started and creating a data literacy program within your organization. So I've been doing data warehousing, business intelligence, data governance work for almost 30 years now. And I've worked with all kinds of organizations. And one of the things that I've found is that if we can take certain approaches to doing this, we can create organizations that use data in a very proficient manner. They use data as an asset in their organization, and they're making effective decisions on how they're performing and how they're going about their daily business. So let's get into it a little bit and let's start talking a little bit about data literacy. So what is it? Well, it's really creating the ability to read, to work with, to analyze, and to communicate with data. It is really, truly a skill that can empower all levels of workers. And what's important is it's empowering them to ask the right questions about the data, and it allows them to build knowledge and to make decisions and to communicate with others in a very effective manner. I've seen organizations where they really were suffering and not truly using data to make effective decisions, or they didn't understand the data or where it came from, and they were reporting to regulatory agencies with numbers that they couldn't understand. What we had to do is really create a program where every person, every employee would be able to understand, to read the data, to know what it meant, and to be able to communicate using it in an effective manner. And what was great is that it really empowered everybody to be a knowledge employee, not just a data worker, but a knowledge employee that uses the data and the knowledge of the data and the understanding of it to make effective decisions in their day-to-day exercise. So why do we care about data literacy? Well, number one is it's going to actually increase the use of data in your organization. Yes, we are creating tons of data. We talk about the terabytes and the petabytes of data, but do we really use it effectively? And do we use it in a way that we actually understand? So when we create a data literacy program and we lay out the data in a way and the understanding of it, it really creates a method for us to use the data in a much more effective manner and actually take those terabytes of data and use it so that we can actually make good decisions. The next thing that data literacy does is really starts to help us understand where data is. With the advent of data lakes, data in the cloud, and the proliferation of various different ways that we can capture and augment and store and expose data in our organization, we really are looking for different ways so that we know where it is and where is it the most effective, because that's really what is going to create a way for us to be effective, is to know where that data is. Okay, so what else are we looking at? We're creating trust in it. And trust is defined by a couple things: that we have a good, strong definition of the data, that we know who owns it, who moderates the use of it, how we can get access to it. In addition, where it comes from, how it's being used. Has it been approved? So creating that trust is a big factor. And I hear that over and over in organizations, that Maybe they have a warehouse or they have a data lake, but they don't really trust it. So they build all kinds of proliferations of other data sets because they haven't created that trust in it. And so that's a big part of it. Once we do that, we actually start to enable new data insights, right? If you start to know where the data is and you start to understand what it means, we create the ability to have new insights on it and to be able to build insights on it that we have never done before. This is where our data engineers and our data scientists really come in. They're looking at all this data, and they spend way too much time trying to find it and to understand what it was. And then they're not spending enough time actually creating new insights on it. When we have a good catalog of information where all users understand it, we all are able to make those insights. Data literacy is really truly a keystone to making data-driven decisions. And I think that's key. All of this, all the things we've talked about before, is this is driving us to the ability to make those data-driven decisions. Okay, so what else? We want to be able to make informed data decisions. So it's a keystone. We want to make sure that we're making informed decisions, that we're using the data properly. And so if we understand it, that we know how to talk about it, and we talk about the data in the correct way with that grander understanding of it, then we're making those better decisions. It is truly a prerequisite for employees to interact with the data in a meaningful and critical way. Without literacy, we are often not using the data correctly. We are often propagating it even more and reporting on it in ways that we didn't really intend to. So it's very important that we start to establish, when we're building out our governance programs, when we're building out our catalogs of information, or building out our glossaries of data, we want to make sure that its aim is to create a literacy program so that it supports all of us in being able to interact with the data. So the paths to making this happen. This is really the first step. Is we need to have a champion. And so if I'm thinking about, these are kind of the core tenets that I've come up with that have been very successful in creating a very quick approach to starting that literacy in your organization. Having a champion is definitely paramount. This is a person that can speak to the organization of why this is so important, and they are the driving force for why data is going to be used to make decisions in our organization, and why it's so important that everybody has an understanding of that data. Then the next step is identifying a critical need area. So oftentimes we think about, well, let's start cataloging everything. We'll catalog all our transactional systems. We'll catalog our data warehouse, our data lake. That's great. You definitely can do that, but that's not focused in on an area, and it may take a very long time to actually find success in that or value. We want to find a critical need that has a problem statement where there's a need in the organization for understanding that data, and use that as a kind of a landing zone where we can land on building out the program to support data literacy. So let's identify that critical need. It's like an initial use case of the data where there are problems. It's kind of low-hanging fruit, and focus in on that. Once you've identified that problem or that need, then it's really focusing in on defining focus on a defined set of personas. So there are different types of roles people play with data. There are consumers of data. Consumers could be people that run different reports. They could be the CEO that looks at a dashboard of the organization, versus maybe a data scientist who is really looking at how I can build new insights of the data and new metrics that could be used. And then there's the governance personas. that are looking at, is this data being protected? We look at it from different perspectives, and each of these people, we need to find out which ones we want to focus in on and make sure that we understand them and have key representation from those different personas before moving forward. Then what we do is we start to identify what questions they have about the data. What are those questions that they ask of the data in those different roles that they have? And this will help us to identify how to construct a method for sharing that information with everybody. The next step is to really model that data so it supports those questions. And we'll show that in just a minute. But it's really important to think about it from a perspective of what questions does that persona have of the data? How can I address answering it? And making sure that the model that I'm building will support and address those. And then lastly, as we roll out a program, as we build out the catalog and we build out glossaries and we support a program that is teaching the organization how to use data in a more effective manner, we want to start to measure those results. Are people coming to a platform and asking the right questions of it? Are they starting to establish new insights on the data that have not been made before? Are we reducing the cost to produce reports because we have a good catalog of what those reports are? There's a number of different measures that we can establish to see if we have an effective program, but it's definitely something you want to do. As with any program, you want to make sure that you're thinking about how are you going to measure success as you move forward. All right, so that's my presentation, but let's go into how we would actually do some of this work. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of scenarios inside of data.world. We're in what we call our open house. This is a demo environment that we've built. And what we can see is that we've defined a couple of different types of resources and catalog glossaries here. Just let me walk through this a little bit. One of the first things we can often do after we've identified what those questions are, oftentimes the questions are, well, I need to know what tables are out there, or what data sets or what reports exist that support the organization. So cataloging your environment can be very useful. And that's what we're trying to show here, is that we're cataloging, and we'll get a little bit into that. So that's the first part. That's the more technical aspect, of going out, capturing that metadata of those platforms where the data resides or the data is being exposed, so that we can use it to help tell the story of the data, and that business users and the consumers of data know where it is. The other step is to build things like business glossaries. And in this example, we have something called business terms. The glossary is really a business term way of defining your data. It also is used to define your business. The business glossary is really kind of that top level organizational, top level view of what you're trying to accomplish. Let me walk a little bit through that. So a lot of times what we see is that we may have different types of glossaries. We may have glossaries of what metrics we have in our organization. We might have glossaries of the entities that we want to maintain. We may have glossaries of the concepts that you may be doing in your business organization. All of these are important to define because they allow an entryway into your data. One of the things that we talked about earlier was that we need to model the data, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to go to one of the terms in here. Let's say I'm a data scientist and I'm interested in knowing information about orders. So I'm going to look for orders. Oh, yep, there is a business term called order, and I'm going to go into that. As you can see, there's information on this page, on this glossary term, that helps me understand what what order means in our organization. But it tells us more. So when I talked earlier about identifying questions, you can see that what we've done here is we've modeled out a couple of different things. We have the description and a summary of the term, but we also have some other information like, is there a formula? Is there an executive summary? We could add other information like, does this term have PII or will be affected by PII? Is it affected by a regulation? Maybe we want to capture what regulations it is identified by. Or we might have a set up, maybe we have a term on here, a field that identifies some best use cases for this term. In addition, we've captured something called the Data Steward here. Sometimes one of the things that we like to know is who's responsible for this term, so that we can actually get more detailed information from them. So I think when I was talking about how do we model the information, we want to think about how are we modeling a construct with the information and the data needed to help address all of those questions that you might have. Now, in this example, we see order, and we want to build out how that's looking. So we want to make sure that we're also looking at it from a perspective of how does that link to the actual data out there. So in this particular case, you can see that we've linked this business term to an analysis. So this is actually going to a dashboard report. So that means, oh, there must be a dashboard report out there called shipping order that has information about orders. We also have where this is related into a table. That's also very important because we might want to be able to find tables that have order information. In this example, you can see that there's only one, but maybe there'd be many types of tables that we would have. And we want to link them to this business term so that we can understand where I can actually use this data and find information on it. So as a business user, as the data scientist or a business user, or anyone who wants to understand this, now I understand, oh, I have orders, but I also have something out there where there's order information being stored, and it's stored in a table called retail order. So let's just take a look at that. This gets into a little bit more information. Again, I might be asking the question, does this table have confidential information? So we want to flag that so it is. I also might want to know who owns this from a technical perspective. Who would I call if I would like to get access to it? Maybe I can call this technical owner. Maybe we'd have contact information here for being able to get access to it. It does tell us some information. And I think when you're thinking about your policies, your construction for building out your literacy program, you must think about all those questions that you want to ask. You see that then we can see, oh, yep, there's fields here. I can link back to that order, to that table, I'm sorry, that business term. And you can see that there's some technical information here, and we could build that out. We could see that it's in actually a source database that's effective there. Let's just go back because I want to take a look. Many times I'm not going to be the type of user that necessarily, or I want to ask the question about where the data is, but I want to know where I've seen this in reports. So being able to go to that dashboard and find out what that looks like is really important. So constructing a way to find more information is very, very useful. And we want to build out methods that allow you to find the information, find where it's used, how it's used, has it been approved? All of these are really important aspects. In this example, you can see that we've actually done a clipping of a preview of the dashboard report so you could see it. Again, the more information that you can construct and give back to your users gives them more understanding of it, how it's being used in that use case, how it's being used to solve that business problem. If I just go back, I just want to show one more thing. If we go, we also, when we talk about constructs, we want to figure out how can we look for data. We want to be able to search for it, like I did with an order. We also may be able to want to filter, creating the right kinds of filters on information so that you can narrow it down to a subset of information is all critically important so that you can really get a good view of it. Let me just go one more item here that I want to help understand is that not only do we want to be able to understand the information, sometimes it's useful to actually see it. So being able to go to what we call data sets, and then this would allow us to classify and collect a set of terms or a set of like tables together so that's all in one place so you could see how they might interact. And in addition, this is where we can actually create connections to virtualized data. And that can become really useful so that if you are a user, you want to question the data, look at it, that's an important aspect also. Then lastly, there is this aspect of analysis of data, and we can create insights or analysis of the data that's out there. And that can be really powerful for understanding and literacy. And this, we can build and create an insight for the information that we might want to see. So this is just a little bit of a summary of how we would go about all of the aspects of building out the information needed to support a literacy program. And as you can see, we can build out lots of different pieces in a piecemeal fashion. So I think, when you're thinking about it from this catalog perspective, we might have identified a use case. Let's say it's about orders and order management or retail orders. We would catalog the tables that support orders. We would catalog the reports that might exist around those orders so that we can see what they are and ask questions of them. Build business terms around them so that they support the understanding of it. And that's a really good way of doing it in a very small way at first, but build out over time so that it's something that the user community can learn from and ask questions. I really want to appreciate, I want to thank you for listening to me. If you have questions, I would definitely love to hear them. This is something that we believe is the foundation for you to be able to build out not only understanding of your data, but a way to interact with it so that it supports all kinds of questions in your organization. Remember, think small. Don't go too big at first. Identify that core problem statement that you'd like to address first. Understand the users that need that support to address it. Make sure that you're building a way for them to understand and look at the data in an effective manner and start to use it so that it's supporting data as an asset in your organization. Model it so that it's used in an effective way and that it answers the questions you have. And then the last thing, again, measure this. Make sure you're taking a look at how you're using the data, how you're measuring it, measuring the success of your program. Are new terms getting built? Are people coming in and looking at those terms that you've built, at those tables, and looking up the definitions so that they understand it? Are they interacting with it? There are methods for creating interaction with it and that they're asking questions of it so there's clarity as you go forward. In addition, just because you build it once doesn't mean that it's not going to change over time. Make sure that you're looking at, are you becoming even more effective in that use of the data? Are you enabling your user community to build on it and tearing down those silos that often exist in organizations so that everyone's sharing the information? They're building out a glossary and sets of definitions that everybody has contributed to. because there's often many different ways people think they're using the data. Get to the truth, get it exposed, and make it available to everybody. Again, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you listening to me. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'd love to talk.